Hello and welcome to Beyond the Lines. My name is Sarah, I'm the artist behind Pinselgeschichten, and today I'm going to work with watercolors in the Secret Garden Artists Edition coloring book by Johanna Basford, which has paper that is watercolor friendly. So that is why I like to use in that book with the watercolors to show you things. Today it's yellow, and I'm going to complete this painting start to finish, and I'm going to show you how you could work with white space in one part to have a natural shading going on once you don't have 100 million shades of one color or you don't want to use them, and how you can contrast another part of by using maybe a cold color in combination with a warm color or only warm colors. And depending on how many layers you want to have and you want to put down and that your paper can handle, how much water it can handle, how you can achieve certain things that look more natural than comic-y. Enjoy watching along. Next week I'm gonna come back with the last lesson for yellow. It's gonna be color pencils, and then I'm gonna go to the three color challenge and sceneries to show you how I put it all together in one big coloring page or painting. But for now, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let me start with the yellow watercolors. So today I'm going to work with watercolors, like I said in the beginning, and I'm going to show you how I like to work with yellows and make them look less comic-y but more natural. I'm having a tiny little water brush here, and this flower for me personally needs a base coat first, and then I can work with shading. And for the base coat I would use the Kuritakis, and for the shading and more detailed work I will then go into the watercolor pencils. Now there's a few bees or moths or butterflies flying around, so I'm gonna dedicate the lemon yellow tone for that, and I will use more of the warmer yellows for the flower itself. So I'm having three colors here, three tones of yellow, and you can see here's a lemon yellow. It's more of a mix, maybe a butter yellow, and then the warm cat yellow. And I'm going to start with the lemon yellow and just give the butterflies and everything a base coat. Again, I'm working with monochrome paintings here, so I have to make up for contrast that I would actually achieve by using different kinds of colors in other paintings, where you would work with complementary colors or neighboring colors on the color wheel to achieve contrast. I can only do that here by intensifying certain colors, but not by using, let's say, a blue next to a yellow and make one of the colors pop, or by using a purple or an orange or a red or something. Since I'm working with monochrome here, it's only yellow, but there's so many tones of yellow that you could still make it work, and I want to show you that. Now there's only a few tones of cold yellow, so the lemon yellow is one of them. But there's a lot of warm yellow tones. So there's things like sunny yellow, Sicilian yellow, Nepal yellows. There's mustard yellows, cat yellows, chrome yellows, all the yellows that are more towards the warmer part of the spectrum, but there's very few only for the cold yellows, so lemon yellow being one of them. So now I got that part down. I'm going to the sunny warm cat yellow, and I'm going to base coat the flowers. Only very loosey-goosey, nothing fancy. I'm going to have detail here in a minute when I use the watercolor pencils. And with especially coloring pages like this, where you want to use watercolors, but you have only so much space to work with, or the details are rather tiny, you might want to think about using watercolor pencils instead of the pens that I'm using here, unless you're base coating, because they're way more controllable than the liquid watercolor that I'm putting out here. There's things that I'm not gonna color right now with those pens, like the stem, for example. I'm gonna leave that to the watercolor pencils. I'm just gonna base coat quickly the flowers, the blossoms here. I'm also having a few more tones of yellow in my watercolor pencils, so I could use just the variety of pigment to my advantage there and, well, have a bit more variety and shading going on. Now for the big leaves here, I want to use the mustard saffrony yellow that comes with the pans. But just on those very big leaves here. Just like that buttery yellow looks. Actually, aside from mustard yellow and saffron yellow, this buttery yellow is actually my favorite tone of yellow in any kind of medium. So it being the Inktense or watercolors. I do like those buttery looks here. Okay, I might want to add a little bit to the other leaves. Just a smidge. But I don't take care of the outlines of the leaves now, because again, this detail is way too tiny and I want to take care of that when I use my watercolor pencils. Alright, that's, I think, enough. Going to take care of the rest with the pencils, but I have to put my Kuretakis away for a minute. And I have to get the big box of watercolor pencils. I'm using the Albrecht Dürer watercolor pencils by Faber-Castell, and you can see here I have quite a bit of variety. So the whole upper line here would be yellows. Here's the orange. And then I also do have a bit of yellow here that I could work with. Now, for now, this doesn't look like much because there is no detail in there yet. So I have to give this a blast and dry this off. Now I would choose different pencils for example, for the flower buds or for the stems. And I want what do I want? The 184. The 184, I want that for the stems. This is the dark Naples yellow, and I want to mix it with 183, which is the light ochre. I'm gonna start up with that. Just adding the pigment. And also using the same pigment for the stony bits down here. So pretty much all the stems and the outlines of the leaves. I have to sit a bit better. That's better. So the more I go up in the stems, the more of the Naples yellow I use. The lower I go, the more I'm using the light ochre. So light ochre would be here. I'm not gonna take care of the grass blades for now. Gonna do that in a second. And I'm just going in and going around the leaf with the outline, and that is the light ochre that I'm currently using. Would I want a bit more of the whimsical look, I would go with all of those lines in the leaves. But I said that I wanted to achieve a bit more of a realistic look today, or a natural look. So I'm disregarding line work quite a bit if it's a bit too whimsical or too much. Gonna shade here. Going to move to the Naples yellow. Just on the base of the leaves, I'm going to add a bit of pigment there. Same goes for the tiny leaves that I haven't colored so far. Just gonna put a little bit of pigment on the base. That's enough actually. I can pull pigment quite a bit, or I could just work with white space there. Both things work. Alright, now for the grass blades here, I want something a bit lighter, just to have this big flowery bit stand out. So I'm using Naples yellow light. So this is the light, this is the dark that I had used in the upper part. I'm gonna use the lighter tone just to add a tiny little pigment that I can pull towards the end of the grass blades. There in a minute. Okay. And now I want to add some color or some shading in the flowery petals, and for that, what do I want to use? I think the 109, which is the darkest yellow that I have. It's a dark chrome yellow, and I'm going to go the base of these petals and just add a tiny little pigment. Not on all of the petals of this flower, but most of them. And that will just intensify the contrast. What I'm also gonna do, gonna add the shading right away, which is with the light ochre. I'm gonna add a bit of that tone here in the darker spots where I think it could have a bit of a shadow. And I'm throwing things, of course, because that is what you do. I'm gonna do the same thing with the other blossoms here as well. Now we'll liquefy the whole pigment in one go and then decide, okay, where do I want more? Would I liquefy petal by petal by petal, so putting down pigment, liquefying, putting down pigment, liquefying? I would probably smudge and smear things a lot because I would probably have my hand in wet pigment all the time, and like this I can actually make sure that I'm having the pigment down first. I just have to remember where I put it, and then I can liquefy it all in one go. And I'm just changing up shading and where I put that dark pigment here very, very slightly from flower to flower. Because again, I want them to feel the same. They're of one stem, but well, there's difference in the way these flowers look. So I'm going to add a bit of different kind of shading everywhere. And let's liquefy. Having hardly any water on my brush, just being very light and subtle with liquefying the pigment. Just a tiny, tiny bit. The orange or the dark chrome yellow here. And I'm not going all over the place with where I liquefy, but only the parts that I have put down pigment. So I'm not coloring the whole flower again. And now I'm going over the leaves. Don't forget to turn your work if that is more comfortable for you. I'm going to also liquefy the pigment in the stems all in one go. Being careful that I don't pull the pigment all over the place, but still have a bit of a naturally gradient feel going on here. So here where I had a base coat, I'm only liquefying the pigment, but I'm not pulling it towards the parts where I hadn't put the, I think it was the Naples yellow, or was it the light ochre? One or the other. I'm not pulling it, I'm just staying in the sections where I had put down that pencil. And that makes for a very nice, very heavy shadow in this case. Would I have pulled the pigment, it would have been way more blendy, but you wouldn't have been able to see that I actually have quite a bit of shadow in there, though I'm not having a very harsh contrast down. But if you only pull the pigment so far of your shaded colors, like here, you're actually able to see the pigment quite a bit in comparison to the almost fading into white yellow on this part. And this is how I like to work with shading when I have only one color, very limited palette, but I want a natural look or a natural feel to it and not a comic-y or whimsical kind of a feel like I had before in the oh gosh, what's the word? With the Copics, you know. So now I'm going to pull the light Naples yellow of the grass blades upwards. I don't have to stay within the blades per se. I can have a bit of yellow pigment that is maybe a bit more wider, like it is down here. It's so light and so subtle that you could actually get away with it with the yellows. I wouldn't do that necessarily, say, with purple or pink, but with yellows, it's fine. All right. Now I need a bit more for the butterflies or bees. And I want quite a bit of contrast there as well. So I'm going to take 108, which is cadmium, dark cadmium yellow. And I'm going to put down the pigment towards the middle section of these butterflies, just where the wings attach to the body. If you hear people laughing, that's actually Tina and Daniel watching some movie or playing some video games because they have a day off today. I don't, so I'm working, but I hear them laughing downstairs. I don't know if I can edit it out. If not, you're welcome participating in the fun of my family. So I'm just going to the parts where the wings attach to the body and get the darks in there. You can see quite a bit of contrast there already, and I'm going to be very careful when I liquefy that pigment now. If you would have maybe a saffron or maybe a mustard yellow now, that is maybe a bit more intense, like I would have with the Neo colors or with the ink tints, that would be a nice thing to add. But I'm not gonna, because I wanted to have the watercolors. I might show that to you later in another Beyond the Lines episode, if you so desire, if you want to see that. But for now, I'm staying with true watercolors, and I'm gonna give it a quick blast and then go in with the next layer. At this stage, where I have most of the shading, most of the color down, what I'm gonna do, and I only recommend that to do that for a second or two, is cross-eye my vision so that I don't see the line work. I only see the blurry blobs, and I can see easier where shading is right. So this flower and this flower are perfectly shaded. This one isn't. These two are not the greatest either. So I'm going to add a bit of the light ochre where it needs it, just a tiny bit. And it really helps with the crossing your eyes for a second there. You're not able to see the line work anymore. You just see the color blobs, and there you can see the values of the color you put down. Again, I don't recommend to do that for minutes, but for like 2 seconds, it's totally fine. All right. Let's liquefy. Liquefy. There we go. There we go. This one needs a bit more. Would I have more than one color and wouldn't be monochrome, I would have a very soft green or a very soft blue in the background to work with, but I'm not going to add any background here because, well, I'm staying monochrome. Another thing that I want is a bit more contrast on the wings, so I'm going to add the yellow ochre too. But I'm not going to liquefy it, I'm going to let it sit on top of the paper. You don't always, especially when you work with watercolor pencils, you don't always have to liquefy everything, every layer. You definitely could, but you could get away with using the same medium and have it wet and dry, you know? And I'm just adding a tiny bit of dry yellow ochre here. Just wondering, I might want to add another layer of the light Naples yellow here. Just a tad. I'm gonna yellowish feel, and a bit more of the yellow ochre on the pebbles. Just a tad as well. I'm going to liquefy it on the pebbles, but not the yellow Naples yellow. Oh gosh, words. I'm not gonna liquefy that. So this would be it here. I'm gonna dry it off one more time, add a tiny bit of white gel pen, and I'm good to go. Actually, I just saw something I want to add. Bit of a darker look here. I'm going to not liquefy this pigment, just gonna leave it. But I have a bit of a darker part here. Same here. And here. Just to add a bit of contrast, you know? Bit of light white gel pen for the center of the flowers. It's just a little detail that I like to add. And this is, especially these blossoms here, this is how I think you could work with very few shades and achieve a pretty natural look of the blossoms. It's very, it looks very late summery, so any wild flowers or balcony flowers that you could have, you could achieve with only a few layers of color. You could achieve to have a full yellowish, kind of a orangey, brownish yellow. That's the word. Yellow blossom there. So that was my watercolor yellow. And next week I'm gonna show you how I work with the polychromos and also be more in the natural realm, but well, have a different kind of feel to it just because the line work is different. I hope you enjoyed watching along. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section below. I'm gonna see you next week. I hope you had fun. Do all the good YouTube stuff, like, share, subscribe, and look for the blog post if you want to know the exact numbers of the pencils or the Kuretake pens that I use there. Have fun, everybody, and I'm going to see you next time. Bye!